This season of The Digital Fix is sponsored in part by Uconnect, providing true transparency for brands and agencies in the biddable media space. Visit them today at uconnect.com.
You're listening to The Digital Fix, digital marketing done right. And now, here's your hosts for The Digital Fix, Sean Halter and Stephen Moore.
You are listening to The Digital Fix, the podcast for all things digital marketing, presented by MEO, a signal-driven growth platform for agencies, media teams, and marketers. Turn marketing insights and outreach into action. Visit them today at meointelligence.com. As a reminder, The Digital Fix is hosted by myself and Stephen Moy, both of us with digitalfix.ai, a consultancy helping C-suite executives to bridge the AI gap. Our guests today are Lynn Peters, founder over at L. Peters Consulting, and Maeve Wang, co-founder and CEO at IAMBIC. How did I do, Maeve?
You did great.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Boom. Knocked this out of the park. First things first, I'm going to ask the first question. Name another marketer or brand who you think is getting digital right these days and why. Lynn, let's start with you. Who do you feel is out there knocking it out of the park, or is just somebody interesting that you're watching, person or brand?
Yes. So I have two teenagers. So a lot of our time is spent, I think, in the QSR space. And I feel like from just a customer experience standpoint, I think McDonald's has done a really fantastic job. I think a lot of their business went digital because of COVID, but I think they've made that transition very seamless for the customer. And it isn't just about the operations piece or promotions. I think it's everything from their app to their loyalty program to their ordering experience and just like how they leverage offers to get you to come back into the restaurant. I think it's increasingly connected, right? And to me, when a brand gets it right, it means that it feels very seamless and easy. And so I think about my kids and everything that they do in that app, and it just feels very powerful. It's not just a marketing channel for them. It's really just how they run their business.
I love that pick. And QR codes are so funny because pre-COVID, it was there, but it wasn't catching on. I think most of us were like, all right, we've moved on. And then suddenly COVID comes and it's then everywhere. And now it's ubiquitous. You can't open a TV, you can't do anything
I have
without
a fun fact, actually.
Let's hear it.
2013, I led the team build the first McDonald's mobile app. Designed for
Oh,
1 billion people.
Wow.
yeah.
Stephen's
So you
tentacles
can
are
blame
everywhere.
me or not blame
Steven's,
me.
in charge of everything.
We do sometimes, even though I tell you guys before the podcast not to drink a lot on the podcast, typically meaning water and coffee, we do sometimes have a drinking game, which is anything somebody mentions. If Steven's got a tie to it, I thought he was going to say he was the first QR code on the dating app. I don't know. Who knows? That said, Maeve, let's move to you. Who would you pick and why?
I would say from a long-term view, it's actually been Aura Ring for me. I think Aura took something that most people initially considered really niche and they made it mainstream, and they led with substance. There's the science, there's the biometric data, there are the real benefits people feel in their bodies every day, I'm aware. And I think the marketing and the community feel really grounded. People talk about their sleep scores, the readiness scores, the way that IAMBIC clients kind of talk about fit. And so it was a product that created a vocabulary that they've really built a whole world around. And so that's something that's really spoken to me, that premium physical product, the deep software intelligence, a category seen for niche for many years, sitting inside this broader category. For IAMBIC, it's walking shoes, right? For them, it was just wrist-worn wearables back in the mid-2010s, which had been diluted with really cheap products for quite a while. And so I see Aura as just proving you can establish this new category within this broader one, leading with the science and this ongoing experience that people just love more and more.
I love that pick. I'm going to let Stephen ask the next question, but I do want to add this. Lynn, you picked this kind of historical brand that is really leaning into it. And Maeve, you picked this brand that really in some ways killed a bunch of legacy companies that I was a client of. Many of those, to your point, they started getting cheaply made. Their battery life kind of wasn't there. Suddenly it had to charge for 2 days. And yet here comes the Ring. It's comfortable. That's the thing that I think also really helped with that. Stephen, the next question is yours, my friend.
Yes, of course, AAPI Heritage Month, I need to ask that on hopefully on boring questions, especially I have two leaders and legendary Lynn here, right? Very interesting. If you look at demographic, about 7% Asian American in US and then a lot of. Is it more opportunity with AI computing age for Asian American. Let's start with Lynn. I know you're a legendary Calvin Klein and also Wang. Man, you've seen it, right? You've seen it, and I
Yeah.
want to go to Maeve because I don't meet a lot of co-founder, CEO on the side front. So curious, Lynn, do you see more opportunity? Because I started teaching at Northeastern and BU, all the students come up to me. Is AI going to replace me? Especially I'm Asian too. It's a bamboo ceiling lower now for a variety of reasons. So,
Yeah.
Lynn, please.
So I would say that I fundamentally believe that I think AI is going to provide a lot of opportunities in a lot of different areas. I think one of those areas is talent. I think AI, obviously, there's this a component of data and science and technology, but I think the companies and the brands that are going to get it right and where I think we need talent is in that space of creativity, right? It's in that space of different perspectives and bringing that lens of the world into these areas that we're trying to drive greater efficiency or greater productivity. And so for me, I think there is this huge opportunity from a humanity standpoint. And I think when you are a person of Asian descent, you automatically just have a different view of the world, right? And I think that is so important. And so my hope is that your students or the leaders that are coming up really grasp onto that and actually be more overt and loud about that versus just like blending into everybody else. I fundamentally believe that will be a superpower for AAI people.
Oh, great. And for me, we spoke about a very male-dominated, unfortunately, still very dominant world from the investor side of the house. Do you feel like with the AI advancement and then being Asian American, they give us a level of playing field or like different? And I'm curious about your journey so far.
I think on that front, I don't know if I see a really deep relationship between my ethnicity and heritage and the opportunities that AI provides. For my own heritage, I'm the daughter of two Vietnamese boat people, refugees, and both of my parents came starting with very little, and they worked really hard. My father ended up becoming an aerospace engineer, and I think a lot of that informed the type of potential that I saw that technology more broadly had. And he was part of the first generation of 3D CAD modeling back in the 90s and the 80s. And so I think for me, when I think about just AI and its potential and the opportunities it creates, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. And on this podcast, when we're thinking about marketing and digital marketing, I think a lot of people are applying AI to just maximize more output, like more of the same thing. And it's like more copy, more variants, more personalized subject lines. And then the way that I approach AI, especially through the lens of IAMBIC, is thinking about AI's integration into other levels of the business, from marketing to the product that powers the value proposition. So for a lot of people, they might not know that IAMBIC is actually an AI native company. We actually own the full AI stack and train all of our models on data that we've collected from scratch and own exclusive. So 50,000 fit profiles collected from LA to New York. And our technology transforms 3 smartphone scans into a shoe made for your body. And that smartphone scan and assessment captures 20 biometric variables at millimeter level precision. So what our AI models do is we process that data and digitally fit a shoe for you, which is what allows us to deliver the benefits of a $3,000 to $10,000 bespoke shoe now for 90% less and in 1/12 of the time. So AI for us is doing work that makes the product possible. So our clients, we call all of our customers clients, they don't think, wow, AI, they think this shoe feels totally different. And the work that's involved in AI for us is more than just the software. It's integrating it into the supply chain. It's collecting the data to make it possible. It's really making sure that the full stack is merged and integrated, from the data through the design, through the construction, through the fulfillment, and even the data feedback loop. It just creates a lot of opportunities that are really multifaceted if you approach it from this larger system standpoint. So that's my take on it.
It's a good dovetail into the next question, which is typically, who are you? Tell us what you do and why you do it. You've touched on that a little bit for us, Maeve, here, which is great. So tell us anything else about you, about the company itself, and why you started it as a co-founder and the CEO.
I'll start with an interesting stat where most people don't realize that 2 out of 3 people are walking around in shoes that just don't fit. And only 1 in 4 people recognize that and feel that. And the downstream effects really show up everywhere. Foot pain, but also knee pain, back pain, fatigue. And over time, there's serious injury and permanent damage to the body. I happen to be someone who realized it. I don't have weird feet. I just have slightly wider toes and slightly narrow heels.
No judgment.
So shoes either, yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people are thinking about, but shoes either pinch my toes or they slip off my heels, which chafe and bleed. It's just always been really frustrating finding shoes that fit. And I started my career at Bain. So as a former Bain consultant, I went down the rabbit hole, really recognized the breadth of this problem. And that's why we started IAMBIC. So at the core, we make AI tailored precision fit shoes, fit down to the millimeter with advanced smartphone scanning and NASA grade computer vision. And the tech, which I was sharing about, it transforms data that can be collected through a smartphone and delivers the benefits of really high-end bespoke footwear, which used to be really niche, but in making it more accessible. Our Model T shoe is actually recognized as a time-best invention, and it's built on 12 patent-pending inventions developed over 5 years of government-backed R&D. We launched a limited edition collection at Miami F1 last year, and every aspect of it's actually built on motorsport engineering logic. Think monocoque chassis that's custom molded from data. Think triple layer, triple composite rubber sole layered like a tire that actually incorporates wear bar indicators that can reflect your walking patterns. So I can geek out about this.
I own 2 pairs. So
I was going to say, I feel like if I could get a pair like an 8.5 just to visualize the story a little better, I'm sure I could speak at more greater length. And I'd love the green and the white. Great story. We could certainly spend a ton more time on that. We'd love to possibly have you again on a future podcast as well, where we can really dig into kind of how you founded it and where you started it. But I got to make sure we save time for Lynn, because from what Steven's told me, Lynn, the legend of Lynn is there. So tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why you're doing it these days, if you don't mind.
Oh gosh, Steven is too kind. My background, I've spent most of my career as an operator. I've led marketing, loyalty, digital customer experience, and transformation inside, I would consider, some of the best brands in the world. So I was at Starbucks, Walgreens, Calvin Klein, Stephen alluded to, and Ulta, and just a number of other consumer brands. And so over the last, I would say, chapter of my career, I've moved into what I would call more of an impact portfolio. So this is moving more into consulting advisory work. And for me, it's been great. I have worked in very established big public companies. And so I have that foundational experience and knowledge. But now as a consultant and strategic advisor, I get to talk to everybody from a founder of a startup all the way through very established brands. So the scope and the breadth of roles and problems that I get to solve in partnership with those leaders and brands is really fantastic. And I think it's really fun, especially now, because business and marketing and customers are so complicated, right? And I think we are all, what Maeve said earlier, nobody's really figured out AI, even though everybody tells everybody else that they figured out AI. So I think just sitting at that intersection of all of those different business challenges is pretty exciting. But I would say the one common thread that I try to bring through to all of my conversations is that at the end of the day, I'm helping leaders just create more clarity, right? So it's like, whether it's around the customer or the brand or the business model or how systems need to change and evolve to grow. I think for me, even though I've been a marketer, even though I've been a 2-time CMO, I fundamentally believe that marketing is more than just a campaign, right? At its best, marketing is how a company understands the customer. It's how you create value. It's how you earn trust and drive growth. And I think that's the lens that I hopefully bring when I have these conversations with my clients.
It's a beauty of a podcast like this. I'm going to let you add something in a second, Steve. But what I was going to say is just the beauty of a podcast like this is we get the full scope, which is really nice. We get Steven, who knows everything and was at the beginning of whatever it was.
Well,
we got
when
you
you're like 100.
That's true. That's true. In Chinese years, I think you said you're 68. I don't know. But Lynn, that's had this experience level, but you're really enjoying this opportunity to be a consultant. And the power to say no is really a beautiful power at some point in our careers where we can go, nah, I'm good. I'm okay. And Maeve, to see again what you've built, where you've integrated all this technology, it's really interesting. Steven, I'm going to ask you this question. You can add either to this or add on whatever you want. We talked a bit just at the start of this podcast about what's happening, obviously, in the AI space, which is a very broad term right now. I feel like in the US, and we've talked about this on a previous podcast, we're so focused on what's happening with OpenAI and what's happening over here with Claude. We miss what's happening in APAC, Or am I missing something? Because I feel like it's not at the top part of the conversation. Certainly, we know that China is building things incredible over there. So, what is happening outside of the US when it comes to AI, especially in APAC? Are they jumping in the same space as we are? Are they in other spaces? Are we missing that part of the dynamic? That question is for you, Stephen, and then for the rest of the panel.
Well, I'm going to pose these two guests join me too. First of all, very interesting. When you look at any transformation, you start with infrastructure, hardware, and all the way when you can create application, meaning apps and adding value, it got all the way up to value synergy transformation. So you're witnessing the fastest transformation at all layers, right? First, just a couple of years ago, AI is not new. We deal with IBM Watson 15, 20 years ago, even Terminator 17, where you got Skynet. AI come out with Arnold Schwarzenegger killing everybody. We're talking about AI for years. The reason you see all of a sudden a couple of things changes where OpenAI make it accessible, right? First of all, it's not proprietary. You don't have to do soundstage with Adobe. And then what interesting, the last couple of years I'm witnessing is the hardware AI acceleration innovation. NVIDIA really pushed the envelope. Like all of a sudden, I'm geeky. I'm hardware electrical engineering. And people don't know, and also a computer scientist and MBA marketing. When I studied CPU in the 80s, that was like very interesting. Now you're watching, it's all of a sudden they were able to innovate and lower the power consumption, lower the heat, lower the carbon footprint. All of a sudden you see the taking off. So CES this year, all about hardware AI innovation. Even Samsung reported the most profit because it's selling more memories and CPUs, right? So you see that wave. I think the next wave you will see coming globally, especially from Asia, will be all of a sudden the hardware innovates so fast. And I think nano computing will come and become smaller and smaller. The application, like more, I think IAMBIC will dominate the category. You see more and more AI application. But I would love to see Lin. Let's start with Lin, where you advise a lot of startup company from legacy brand to direct to consumer brand. How do you think about the adoption and acceleration of AI? Like how to create competitive
especially
advantage?
if it comes to APAC or other outside of US? That's an interesting angle. I think that's worth at least exploring, Lin, if you have a thought.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sometimes we forget that there are other parts of the world outside of the US, right? I think when you talk about AI, I think we talk a lot about how that's impacting business and culture, and I think the workforce here. But I agree with you. I've been working with some clients who are global, and there isn't this, I want to say, nervousness or this FOMO that happens when you talk to them about AI. And I don't know if it's because I think in some markets like APAC, they are so far in advance in terms of just technology from a customer experience and how you would market and engage them. So I think for them, I think it's more of a comfort level with them in terms of how they think about it. I think here it feels like it's an arms race, right? Everybody's running, but we don't know what we're running towards, but we just feel like everybody is beating us. And so I think here, my worry is that I think people are going to try to optimize their specific function or their specific like component of the business or the customer experience. But I worry that nobody's looking at the output, right? What does this actually how does this all come together, and how does it actually fundamentally change the customer experience? It's not just about making an ad better or being more efficient in some respect. At the end of the day, we have to really think about, are we adding value to the customer? I think we also I have led with this lens for a very long time. Are we actually solving a customer problem? And so my fear is like AI, you're just going to get so wrapped up in all of these things, but you're going to lose sight of some of these like fundamental questions we should be asking as a business leader.
Maeve, you're in the space, right? You just talked about the fact that you built elements of this yourself. What's your perspective, whether it's US based or APAC, or just how you guys decided to do what you did?
I think that's something that Lynn mentioned, which is around like value to the customer and orientation around that might be getting lost in kind of US discussions around AI. And what I've seen, I don't know if I can speak to APAC more broadly, but what I have seen is how the US AI ecosystem and the Chinese AI ecosystem have begun to diverge in how they're concentrating their investment and focus. So in the US AI ecosystem, you have a lot of computationally intensive frontier models. They're betting on superior hardware resources to drive a lot of those capabilities as well. And that's really exciting, right? But in China, for example, they actually are focusing a lot more on applied AI. And so that is the application of these AI models to very specific verticals let's say across, let's say manufacturing, consumer facing products. And so with those narrower investments, what it does is it actually expands the direct impacts and benefits of AI across more products that people use every day more quickly versus these very computationally intensive frontier models that do have massive capabilities longer term, but require massive capital resources and also have like more of a winner takes all approach to the space from a technology and commercial standpoint. Of course, this is very relevant for IAMBIC because for us, we are very much applied AI, right? We are taking the data, these models, and applying them to a very specific problem solution. And so sometimes when people see IAM, they're like, oh, you're just throwing AI. No, we're actually AI native from the ground up. And this isn't unusual across the world, but like in the US, in this AI world, it is a little bit distinct. So that's where I'm starting to see a divergence.
I don't want to skip one of those points that you made because I think it's incredibly relevant, especially when it comes to what's happening there overseas. You said that there's this element where they're focusing, I don't want to say on niche, but they're focusing in a very specific place in a very specific way. And by doing that, as opposed to broad, like everybody's using Claude, everybody's using this, here's 25 new tools. By doing that, they're really able to create both perfection as well as scale of spend to ensure that it then reaches that dovetail goes much higher. Am I right? That was that point?
I think that in terms of quality of life, that will be improved through the power of AI. People in China are going to benefit from that far more quickly than the US.
Interesting. Stephen, we've only got a couple minutes left. Everybody's got things to do today, places to be, including you and I. We could stay definitely in this podcast for another half hour, but I think we'd have to buy more shoes from Maeve in order to be able to take that amount of time from herself.
A hair product from one of Lynn's
whatever it is. I'm ready to start growing mine again, whatever it is. So the last question is yours, Stephen. You know what it is. Ask the team. Let's hear what they say.
Yeah, so typically sometimes we ask a dinner for four or go to keynote. So the same premise, right? If you can only invite one guest, dead or alive, who would that be and why? Either joining me for dinner or go to keynote speaking. So start with Lynn.
I love this question. So I think for me, the conferences that I've been to where I've seen the most impactful speakers are ones that actually aren't from that industry. So I think that possible it's a room full of marketers, but I had the wonderful opportunity to meet a gentleman named Roland Fryer. He is an economist at Harvard. He was the youngest tenured African-American professor at Harvard, and his story is incredible. He started in a very tough situation in life, and he was never a good student, but somehow discovered that he loved economics in college and went all the way to become a professor. But his work is fascinating because he really focuses on some of the most complex issues in society, right? It is education, inequality, mobility, race, incentives, and how systems either create or limit those opportunity. So for me, his research sits at the intersection of data, human behavior, and real world outcomes, which I think is really relevant for marketers today and business leaders right now. I think we are grappling with all of those things. And what I admire most about his work is that he is willing to ask really hard questions, right? He is willing to follow the evidence and pressure test assumptions, even when the answers are uncomfortable. I would recommend he did this whole data analysis on whether or not there is racial profiling in policing. And it's fascinating. It is fascinating. But he actually, his analysis said no. And he's an African-American gentleman. So just think about that. But I think our industry just needs more of that, right? I think marketing sometimes can become very enamored with trends and narratives and shiny tools. But I think the harder and more important work is asking, are we actually creating value in the work that we're doing?
Great pick. Maeve, next pick is yours.
Love that. Yeah, love that. The question is, are we creating value? And I think that's a big through line in what's really landing for me and what Lynn's saying. You said dead or alive, right?
Dead or alive, yes.
We did, dead or alive.
All right. Enzo Ferrari.
Ooh.
And that's because Ferrari built one of the most valuable brands in the world without ever running it like a marketing operation. And I think maybe this kind of aligns with why I love Aura's approach as well. For Ferrari, the racing came first. The cars came second. The client came third. He made fewer cars than the market wanted on purpose. Every decision that he made would fail a modern marketing brief. And he built something that's outlived him by almost half a century. And I think that's a powerful mindset. Brand building around the product and the obsession, the marketing following just how compelling the product, the experience, the world building is versus the other way around.
I love to see somebody build something that most marketers would say this is not going to
all
work.
need a Ferrari
Yeah.
now. Let's
Steven,
go
you get, as
Ferrari.
always, you get the last word. What do we need to be looking for this week when it comes to the digital fix?
I think AI is leveling the playing field, right? I think that I'm a half full kind of guy. I think that's more opportunities, right? I think we just have to be optimistic. And being immigrant, a lot of people immigrant coming from different country. Our optimism is a little bit different than a lot of people who grew up in this country. So I would say optimism.
I'll take it. Listen, on behalf of myself and Steve Moy, Lynn Peters, Maeve Wang, thank you guys both for joining us on this episode of The Digital Fix. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for listening to The Digital Fix. Digital marketing done right.